Today on CityCast Chicago, what's going down at Chicago Animal Control? Why are so many breweries closing? And where are all the public restrooms across the city? It's Thursday, March 12th. I'm Jacoby Cochran, and this is what Chicago is talking about. We've got executive producer Simone Alisea in the building. How you feeling today, my friend?
I'm all right, Jacoby. How are you?
I'm doing well. I feel like we spend at least one segment every week talking about whether it's vacancies in the city, new hirings coming out of the mayor's office. And so this story really is no different, right? Chicago Animal Care and Control has been without a permanent head for the last 3 years. Susan Capello has served as acting executive director during those years. Recently, she was appointed by the mayor to be the permanent ED that's currently making its way through city council. But as you can imagine, criticisms are mounting about the state of affairs at Animal Care and Control. People are questioning Capello's leadership, if they should remain on. And so, Simone, let's jump into this because this is coming from people who work from Animal Care and Control. This comes from volunteers, alder people. So let's jump into it.
Yeah, so it's interesting because they're basically, after the mayor announced that he wanted to make Capello the permanent executive director, lots of Chicago Animal Care and Control volunteers came out and said, hey, we think this is a bad idea. Look at the conditions in our shelter. And just as a reminder, Chicago Care and Animal Control, it is the animal control part of what the city does. So, dealing with stray dogs, but also like bats and raccoons and things like that. But it's also animal care. They are also the city's largest municipal shelter, the Midwest's largest municipal shelter, and they have to accept every dog that comes to them. It's also worth noting that they do euthanize, which is also a concern that volunteers have brought up. So, among those just conditions generally in the shelter, overcrowding, sanitation, that they're just the cages and kennels aren't being cleaned out enough. Volunteers have accused Animal Care and Control of euthanizing dogs that should be adoptable. That they're essentially euthanizing dogs just to make space. Capello, for her part, has disputed that, saying that, they weigh a lot of things when it comes to euthanizing dogs, including behavior, safety concerns, as well as age and just sort of quality of life. But also said that sort of like intake volume, there is some influence in sort of making those decisions, but it's not sort of the reason that you would euthanize a dog. And, when we talked with them last in 2024, a big thing that we were talking about was this rising rate of euthanasia, but also just how many more cats and dogs in particular they have been taking in. Especially since the pandemic. We know that there were a lot of people giving up their pets during the pandemic for lots of reasons, whether job loss, moving, just couldn't take care of the animal, or people adopting during the pandemic who then realized they couldn't take care of the animal and then trying to give it back, right? So in 2023, Chicago Animal Care and Control took in over 13,000 cats and dogs. But last year, that number shot up to over 18,000. So there are a lot of animals coming in and out.
Yeah, and it seems as I dig through these reports that the criticism is in some cases systemic, right? That this is a problem inside of Animal Care and Control. It has been for a long time. The Sun-Times, for example, referred back to 2018 when the then executive director was replaced because people complained that dogs were being warehoused and dangerous dogs were being made even more dangerous through these conditions. 5 years before that, Inspector General at the time, Joe Ferguson, concluded that lost, stray, and impounded dogs and cats weren't cleaned and fed properly. Current volunteers are complaining that, like you said, due to the amount of animals who have come in, the funding changes from year to year, the number of volunteers they have, that this is leading to overcrowding. It's leading to dogs not necessarily being walked daily. It's leading to a cleanliness problem with pictures circulating of dogs inside of poop-filled kennels. And so some people are blaming the sort of system of it all, that things are backed up and overwhelmed. But then there are others like WGN Radio's Steve Dale, a certified animal behavior consultant, who says, I've been looking at this for 4 decades, and there's always complaints about leadership. I've seen executive directors come and go, but he said, I have never seen vitriol like the coordinated campaign against Capello. Some 30 organizations have pushed back on naming them the permanent head. Say it goes beyond the cleanliness and the way the dogs are impacted, but they describe a toxic environment of hostility, manipulation, favoritism, and retaliation for volunteers who speak up and against the conditions.
I think this is interesting because I think, you have this group of people who says this is about the leadership. This is about who is in charge. The problem with animal care and control is this person, this acting ED, is not up to snuff. They are not able to and additionally, are creating a situation wherein, these conditions are unsustainable and are unsustainable. On the other hand, and you have a group of alders who signed a letter urging Mayor Brandon Johnson to do a national search instead for a new head of animal care and control. Although, again, it's worth pointing out that, it's interesting because, the language they use is, we think the mayor should take a pause. She's been acting director for 3 years.
For 3 years, to which some people will say, hey, you've been in this position for 3 years. Have you not been able to make any changes? Have you not been able to advocate for improved conditions, improving the budget? To which Capello has pushed back in some of these interviews, of which he has done quite a few over the last couple of weeks, to say, my role as acting director didn't necessarily give me the authority to start thinking long term. But I agree with you, at a time in which we have a few interim directors, from CPS to CHA to CTA. Some of those people have started to have conversations around long-term policy beyond their current tenure. And so,
although some of those, all three of those agencies you mentioned are sister agencies to the city of Chicago, which is very different than being a department head within the city of Chicago.
That's a very, very good point. I more or less was simply talking to the timeline and the feel.
Yes.
Capello saying, my role as acting director didn't give me necessarily the power to start thinking long term, where others are saying, you've been there 3 years and have been relied on by the city. You have sat in these budget meetings. Why haven't we started addressing some of these issues beyond the scope of who's in charge or not?
Although you can kind of see where she's coming from, though. I've definitely been a person who's been a long-term contractor who didn't know if my contract was going to be renewed, and you can't really plan for what is going to happen, right? I kind of see where she's coming from there. It's also interesting that a few of Chicago's big sort of animal care organizations have come and tried to back Capello's appointment here. Pause is the big one, right? They are I think the biggest no kill shelter in the Midwest. The Anti-Cruelty Society, Treehouse Humane Society, they've all defended Capello. Notably, another big name that folks in this space will recognize is One Tail at a Time. Their co-founder has come out and on the side of volunteers who say that Capello is not qualified for this position. And so it's not. I think the other thing that Capello has said, to your point of systemic issues, so there's this issue of leadership. Is it the leadership that's the problem, the person who's in charge? Capello and others will point out that compared to similarly sized animal control agencies, Chicago's is maybe underfunded. Last year, Animal Care and Control had a budget of $7.5 million. Okay, that sounds like a lot of money. That's about the same size as Indianapolis's, sort of similar agency. Indianapolis, of course, a city with 2 million fewer people than Chicago has. And you look at cities with similar intake levels, the same level of actual animals coming in. Tampa has a budget of about 11.5 million. New York City, a budget of over 30 million. Houston, a budget of about 16 million. And so, Capello and others have said oh, well, the problem is if you talk about systemic issue, the budget just isn't there. Now, alders have said well, why didn't you ask for more money, as you kind of allude to during the budget process? Give us a number. Capello says that's not actually how this works. And we're sort of then getting into kind of the nitty gritty of how do department budgets come to be, and how much of that is the top down, kind of the mayor saying, here's how much money you're going to get, or here's how much money I think you should get. And how much of that can be from the bottom up of departments saying, this is the exact dollar amount we need to do XYZ.
I know that there has been money set aside to hire more permanent positions within the facilities, but some people argue that that's not going to be enough to stem some of these issues. And so I wonder if just from a good faith standpoint, we end up with a longer search, if this is put on pause, or if even if they give it a moment to sort of die down, because it feels like a difficult place to be approving a sort of a permanent position under this much scrutiny. So I'm interested to see how the full city council takes this up.
Well, and we'll find out during their meeting next Wednesday.
Hi, I'm David Plotz. I'm the CEO of CityCast, a podcast network that includes this show you're listening to, and also 12 other CityCasts in 12 other cities. And each one knows their city as well as your local team knows yours. So isn't it time we connected them? Don't you want to know how they're tackling their bike lane problems and housing challenges and sidewalk dog poop crises? That's why I'm hosting a new podcast called Your City Could Be Better. Because it could be. Every week, I'll chat with a different host in our CityCast network about what their cities are doing right and wrong, the weird things they're trying, and the surprising successes, so that we can all learn how to make our cities a little bit better. Listen to Your City Could Be Better on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts.
Simone, a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about restaurant closures in Chicago. We track these, and I mean, there are so many that open and close. It's hard to keep count. But recently, one trend has emerged, and that's that Chicago breweries haven't been faring well at the start of 2026 on the whole. Let's get into it.
Yeah, the headline from the Sun-Times, 5 breweries in 6 weeks who have announced closure, which that just feels like kind of really in your face when it comes to a trend going on here. Alarmist Brewing and Taproom in Saguenash, which closed in February. Berwyn's Flapjack Brewery, Forest Park's Casa Humilde, also closed. And then 2 more that have announced: Weiner Beer Company and Back of the Yards, closing at the end of this month, and Illuminated Brew Works in Norwood Park, closing.
Oh no, that was the one that I was going
to
talk about.
I wondered if it was because I think it's
the only one. Damn.
And then, of course, we also got an announcement this week, too, that Half Acre Beer Company and Maplewood Brewing are going to be merging as well. Lots of kind of brewery industry news. And, I think this is, when I saw this headline, I think it was pretty alarming to me of you talked this week about, indie venues and how indie venues are struggling. And one reason has to do with the relationship between drink sales and concerts. As you said, we've talked about restaurants closing and the restaurant industry and how difficult it is to keep a restaurant open. And it just sort of feels like another domino when we talk about sort of these local businesses that make Chicago's culture what it is. It's pretty alarming to me.
Yeah, I mean, so much goes into this. We've covered the idea of rising labor costs, rising cost of supplies, the rising cost of rent, depending on where you are in the city. But when you really get into these numbers, it also seems that a trend is plateauing. In 2011, there were about 50 breweries across the state. That number has jumped to 300 around 2024. And, we've said it time and time again, the number of people drinking, the drinking rates around the country are seemingly going down, right? They've tried to bring in better food to breweries, more live events, but that's difficult to manage and has a whole new expense. They've tried to cater to people who don't drink, but the process of removing alcohol from beer is apparently very expensive. So non-alcoholic beers bring up a new cost. And so I've used this phrase before, but like a death of a thousand cuts, I've gotten a better sense through these conversations, just how much goes into keeping one of these spots open, how many considerations are being made. And when you take into account all of these trends about the way we're consuming things versus the growing pressure on these restaurants, these breweries to compete with one another for people's time, their attention, their dollar, it creates a lot of stress on the industry. And with restaurants, Kevin says something really interesting. It's one of those things that, like for me, for example, once I go to a restaurant, even if it's great, I'm like on to the next one. What's the next brewery? What's
There's
the next
so many.
restaurant? Yeah.
Yes.
So when they close down, for those people who may not be in the know or were a fan of them or just that was on their list to maybe one day go, it's just sort of here today, gone tomorrow, and we're on to the next one. It's hard to really sit with these results.
Well, and I think it's tough too, Jacoby. You talked about kind of all the factors that go into, and then you have to think about like the factors behind the trend, right? You mentioned fewer people are drinking. Okay, some of that maybe is just sort of like health choices or choices about drinking in particular, but a lot of that is also driven by consumers not wanting to spend the money. Drinks are expensive, right? And so it's like we are also having our own, consumers are having economic struggles that are sort of then trickling up, I guess, right, into the businesses. And then the other thing you didn't even we haven't even had a chance to mention are the tariffs, Jacoby.
The tariffs.
The tariffs. We talked about this when Trump first took office about aluminum tariffs, and breweries were among the first to sound the alarm over tariffs on imports from Canada, particularly aluminum. They were like, this is going to make the cost of canning beer really, really high. And sure enough, and so like that's
hops, aluminum, all of these things that aren't necessarily coming from up the street.
Yeah. I think the aluminum is the big import on that one. But yeah, I mean, it all entirely depends on how you're sourcing your stuff. And like that is another key. When we talk about supply chain, Jacoby, that's the kind of stuff we're talking about. Because again, those tariffs are paid for by the people importing the good, right? Which is us.
It isn't all bad news on the brewery front. I know Funky Town Brewery, which has gained a huge following over the last few years, is still planning to open a location on the near west side. In some of these articles I've read, owners are still looking for creative ways. What kind of events can we throw? Some breweries are planning to merge together. Like Chicago is still very much, as you've covered in the past, a beer town. And these breweries are looking for creative ways to maintain their market share, to bring out new audiences. But it is very clear that for Chicago restaurants, for Chicago breweries, as Kevin would say, like, you just got to assume your favorite place is always struggling, always close to having to make a difficult choice about whether or not they can stay open for the next couple of months or the next year. And it's just another reminder, because our relationship to the place isn't always taking that into consideration. I'm just thinking about the experience I'm having tonight. But it does feel like, especially in a city like ours, there's something about sort of a not ethical consuming, but a more informed consumption.
Like, I think
a more conscious consumption about like our relationship to the businesses, not only in our neighborhood, but across the city.
Well, and again, I think because these businesses in particular are the businesses we think of when we think of local business, local Chicago, the thing that makes up the block. You're referring to the conversation we had with Kevin Pang, acclaimed food writer and NBC Chicago's food guy. The other thing I think it's worth noting too, or like maybe a tip, I guess, for the concerned consumer is your brewery, your local brewery, in addition to just going and patronizing and buying some beers, they're probably looking for people to host events to get more people in the door. And so like, if you have a
lot of stuff, game nights, open mics.
Yeah. If you have a gathering that you've been trying to plan and you're looking for a third space for those gatherings, like I say this as somebody who I go to Iswa's Brewery here in Ravenswood every single week to play Dungeons and Dragons. And like when that group was looking for a place to move, because we had two venues that had closed in kind of rapid succession, breweries were the first ones who kind of opened up, like welcomed us with open arms. And like they get a group of 50 people in on a Wednesday night. That is maybe a little more revenue than they would have gotten otherwise. Mars Brewery is another one that I know does a lot of events. And so like if you're planning, even if it's a relatively small event, you're not trying to bring in 50 people, but like if you're trying to get 10 people together for a book club or whatever, like check your brewery. Like it's probably a good place to check, and they probably would welcome the business.
Yeah. The more I'm reading about this Half Acre and Maplewood merger, sounds like they were really thoughtful about what are the strengths that each of these breweries have.
I like both of those breweries a lot. So
Yeah.
I'm actually kind of excited about this. I think it could be really good.
Half Acre has been in their space on Lincoln Avenue and Logan Square since 2008. Maplewood started in 2014, and they talk about having expanded buying power for ingredients, being able to bring Maplewood like indoors so that they can sort of brew utilizing the facilities of Half Acre. It sounds like this is, as they put it, a proactive response to a change in their industry. And so it is good to see that there are some businesses in this moment that are trying to be nimble, that are trying to figure this out long before that note gets plopped on the door that says, 2 weeks until closing. All right, so Simone, for this last story, this is a headline that I saw, and I'm gonna be honest, I didn't really drill into. I kind of saw it and just kind of moved on quickly, and that was Chicago's first automated public restroom coming to Wicker Park. What exactly is going on here? What does it mean to have an automated public restroom?
Well, we actually don't know that much because it's not there yet.
Okay.
But Alderman Daniel Espada's office announced that they were going to launch this first automated public restroom in Wicker Park, I believe in like Polish Triangle, so right off the division.
Ashland, Milwaukee. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right around there. The idea is kind of exactly what it sounds like. It's like a stall, like a bathroom, box that will be open to the public that would automatically clean itself. I think this comes at a time where actually over the past several years, I think there's been a lot of debate about, or not even debate, just like people need public restrooms. Like we need more public restrooms.
CTA's restrooms, for example, they operate 250 across the city, but none are available to the public.
Yeah, they closed them in the 70s due to concerns over safety, which you kind of get the logic there, right? Concerns over, say, drug use in bathrooms, or, it's an enclosed space.
Mm-hmm.
You can see why that might be an unsafe space. But on the flip side, again, you have this, we all need to use the bathroom. What's the book? Everybody poops. We all need to do it. And, in addition to the fact that it's something that it's something I think about when I think about how I'm planning. If I have a day that's really busy and I'm traveling to a lot of different places, I am thinking about, okay, where am I going to be using the bathroom? And then on top of that, it also deeply affects people who are experiencing homelessness in Chicago, right? That is a huge issue. And when a lot of the complaints that people have about, say, encampments or even people who are sheltering on the train or whatever, is complaints of human waste and how they are prevalent. Well, if you don't have places for people to use the bathroom that are free and accessible, where else do you expect those people to go? Right? Those are, you have to do one or the other. Either you have to provide a place to go to the bathroom, or you deal with train cars smelling like urine. That's kind of it.
Mm-hmm. I feel like it's one of the most prevalent signs you will see walking through downtown or a neighborhood on small businesses or even larger ones, that is just no public restrooms. It just feels like there's this is off limits to you feeling around just bathrooms in general. If you want to go use the bathroom, you are forced to be a consumer at so many places, which from a business standpoint, I get the considerations being weighed.
So I'm curious, Jacoby, how you feel about this. How do you feel about if there's no sign up? Because sometimes if there's a sign, the venue has communicated with you.
Yeah.
But if there's no sign up, how do you feel about going to use a bathroom without buying anything?
I feel completely cool about that. I don't mind at all. I think the likelihood that I may buy something from your establishment is better if I'm here. And it's a lot better if I go into your bathroom and it's clean and I feel comfortable in there. You didn't give me any stink eye when I walked through. Because at that point, if I'm finna use the bathroom here. I really need to go. And so honestly, just the transfer of goodwill by you handing me the key or not looking in my direction twice makes it much more likely for me to buy something. I am also, because of the way this is constantly promoted, I am taking that into consideration that the place I'm going to go use the bathroom, I'm hoping at best can double at a place that I also grab some water, grab a pastry, look around at the records or the trinkets, whatever they have in there. But I don't mind it. But I am much more likely to buy something from you if you don't have a no public restroom sign and you don't have any animosity towards me for coming in to use the bathroom.
I'm the kind of person who really polices myself on that kind of thing. Like it's the cop in my head that I can't shake off, because I'm absolutely the kind of person who would walk in and feel so awkward and then buy the bottle of water or whatever and then go use the bathroom and then leave and then not say anything. Like that, I can't. It's my own social anxiety around it that I can't bring myself to do it, which has nothing necessarily to do with the establishment. And then I also have the voice in my head that's like, oh, all these places are struggling. You're not going to buy anything. Like it's truly my brain will find some way to make me feel bad about not spending my money.
I remember when we first started, the Tribune did that public bathrooms map. And they made it clear it's really hard to track where all of the available restrooms are because there is no one department that's managing them. They sort of mentioned the types of places that'll get mentioned during warming or freezing moments in the city. So like libraries. I don't know how many people are going to the police station to use the bathroom, but hey, that is a public building that you can go into. Again, they criticize the 250 restrooms operated by CTA that aren't available to the public. And so I wonder, in the years since they published that map, have any of these spots dropped off? Have more been included? I know the Chicago Park District, shout out to Al Scorch, local creator in the city who has been documenting all of the Park District bathrooms across the city. I know those are available, but again, those can be inconsistent from places that have field houses and boat houses to places that have no bathroom facility to parks like the one up in your neck of the woods, up in Uptown, where the Buttercup Park Advisory Council was paying for their own porta potty at the location.
Oh, yeah. There's no bathroom facility. It's like next to a school.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's still there, but it speaks to the inconsistencies across the city and the lack of coordination around making this vital public resource, like, not only available to everyone, but sort of inform us about where they are. I get talking about using the bathroom somehow is still this sort of taboo topic, but to your point, Simone.
But everybody poops, exactly. Jacoby.
It's something that we all need. And again, if you're trying to drive neighborhood foot traffic, if you want to bring people into downtown, if you want to promote people going to public parks, public spaces, enjoying different aspects of the city, then you got to take care of them on those basic fronts. Make sure they don't have to go too long without finding water. Which again, how many of our water fountains are shut down because of lead potential exposure to lead? Like,
is that why they're shut down?
Some of them are, yes.
I don't know. I just assume that they don't work because they don't work.
No, some of them have been shut down due to lead. So I just think it's another one of those overlooked aspects of a city that if we invested in, I think it pays for itself in that regard. All of these concerns aside, I think it's one of those things that makes a city more inviting, more accessible. I appreciate that when I go somewhere else and there are like public goods available that I just don't see in my city. And let's make some smart investments and considerations, not go bottom of the barrel and our choices here. But I do think this is one of those topics that there's probably not a ton of advocacy around. Not a lot of city council members are talking about, like not a lot of organizations making because
no one wants to be like, yes, I'm bringing a toilet to your neighborhood.
I'm on the council for public toilets. But again, this directly connects to other aspects of the city. Like I think about that 2021 reporting from the Tribune. Public urination tickets are something that are being given out in this city. And where do you think they're giving out the most? Hey, one map of Chicago is the same map of Chicago, South and West Side. So when you're thinking about, again, how is this leading to maybe over policing in neighborhoods? How is this impacting the unhoused in our city? How does this impact people's desire to go outside for long periods of time, exploring new neighborhoods and public spaces? Again, this is one of those investments that I think the city should be more proactive on in the long run. Simone, you got anything else?
No, that's it. Michelle, you can keep that shitty in. I think it's good.
Yay! I got a shitty in! I want to give a huge thank you to our executive producer, Simone Alicea.
Hey, thanks, Jacoby.
And remember, our phone lines are always open for text messages and voicemails. We want to hear from y'all. How do y'all feel about the things we talked about today? Do you want to see a public restroom more public restrooms in your neighborhood? How are you feeling about leadership at Animal Care and Control? Reach out to us, 773-780-0246. Leave your name, your neighborhood, and your thoughts, and you may hear yourself on the podcast. Before we get out of here, I got some good news for you. If you're looking for some St. Patty's Day festivities, check out our events calendar. We got day parties, parades, after-hour spots, neighborhood markets, and more. I'm going to be pulling up on Blind Barber that night for Motion Spaces featuring a fire all-women DJ lineup. Shout out Hillary Banks. Shout out Adonia. Shout out Simi. Shout out DJ Cash Era. As long as that line ain't too long, I'm going to be up in there. As always, I appreciate y'all for listening and reading. We're going to be back bright and early tomorrow. We'll talk to you then. Peace.